What we're shooting for is a spec that's about 10 times better than even some of the next generation radar that's not in the market today. So
Y Combinator, Zendar. Y Combinator is an incubator program that helps start companies like Airbnb, Stripe, and Dropbox, just to name a few. Jimmy Wang is the CTO and co-founder of Zendar, a Y Combinator startup that develops high-definition radar for autonomous vehicles. He completed his bachelor's and master's of engineering at UNSW here in Sydney. He also completed a PhD in computer vision and machine learning at UC Berkeley. Jimmy was an engineer for almost 10 years in the field of computer vision before deciding to co-found his own startup, Zendar. We are really excited to have Jimmy here today to discuss his journey about startups, engineering, and how he got to where he is today. Hey, Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Cool. So we'll start off with a bit of an introduction about yourself. Please introduce what you do and what your current role is.
Sure. So I think that you already gave a very good background of what I do and who I am. So my name is Jimmy. I'm a computer scientist, and right now I actually make radar for cars.
Cool. So do you want to give us an introduction of what Zendar does specifically?
Of course. So at Zendar, we're trying to make the highest resolution radar for automotive cars. So this is for this is particularly for cars that going to have advanced ADAS features. So that is cars that can kind of either guide themselves down the road or cars that can react to various different situations. For example, not trying to not hit a child or not hit any road obstacles and things like that. So think of that as the Tesla autopilot of the world, but except that it's more safer.
Wow, cool. That's very interesting stuff. So a bit about your profession. How much time do you spend on your job, and what's that work-life balance like for you?
That's a good question. I think that, typically, I guess we usually work about 11, 12 hours. Maybe, well, I try to do 5 days, but sometimes 6. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's very fluid. I'm guessing there's no set amount of time that you spend each day. There's more some days and more some weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of times we've been, actually I try to go to the office every day, so even in lockdown. So, I tend to spend a big chunk of time at work, and I try to not do so much work at home, but sometimes you can't help it. For a long time, I didn't actually have a computer at home just to prevent me from doing that, but recently I do. So,
oh, okay, that's great. So we mentioned that you have several degrees in the field of engineering. We want to know how you got into this field in the first place. So what made you choose to study a bachelor and a master's in engineering?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. So I actually got there completely by luck, I would say. When we are graduating from high school, we're trying to all brainstorm about what to do, and computer engineering was something that excites me just because I like computers. I obviously didn't know much about what computer engineering actually is, so I thought, why not? And computer science back then was pretty hot, so we chose computer engineering. And when you look at what else is there? There is biomedical engineering, and turns out the University of New South Wales offered a dual degree that with 1 extra year you get a master of biomedical engineering. Then I thought, well, that seems to be a really nice kind of deal. So I just decided on that.
Right. So, that's how you got into the bachelor's. So, did you find out engineering was something that you were good at, or you were very interested in to straight up pursue a master's in engineering as well?
Yeah. So now that I know that I'm actually pretty good at engineering, and I think there's various different traits of my personality that actually fits well to engineering. I wouldn't say that back then I would have known what I'm good at or what I didn't good at, what wasn't good at. So but does that answer your question?
Yeah, of course. So after your master's, right, you went overseas to Berkeley for your PhD after graduating UNSW. Did you look for any jobs before heading to Berkeley, or did you know for sure that you wanted to study a PhD?
Yeah, so I think the reasoning that I went to Berkeley, or rather want to do a PhD elsewhere, is that when I was actually in university, I really liked the computer vision and the image processing part of the field. And then I looked at what can I do with that kind of job, with that kind of specialties in Australia. And turns out there's only 3 different places that that will hire people with that kind of specialties. And every year they might hire maybe on the order of 5 to 10 people. And so then I made the decision that since you want to go into that want to get a job in one of these companies, you really need to be a top student, and I wasn't. So I thought, then maybe I will try to do a PhD elsewhere, and maybe that will give a more chance. And so then I have a couple of advisors that came from Berkeley that highly recommended me to go there, and needless to say, I learned a lot from them. So that's why I applied to Berkeley, and luckily I got into Berkeley.
Oh, that's amazing. Must have been an amazing experience to go to Berkeley. So I noticed your first job experience was at Earthmine. So your focus has been quite specific in the field of street and map processing. How did you get into this career and field?
That's So Earthmine is actually started by a fellow Australian as well.
Oh, wow.
So at the time, we were one of the 2 companies that were trying to make street level maps. And so at the time, they were looking for someone who knows computer vision to able to process, to help them process these camera images to form 3D information. And I applied, and I got the job. And I was actually working there as a summer intern while I was doing my PhD, and I continued to work with them towards after I graduate. And eventually, we got acquired by Nokia. So that's how I started my job. And yeah.
Cool. So at what point, after working in this field for quite a few years, at what point did you decide to want to start your own company, and why was that?
That's actually, again, pure luck, I would say. We were working at Nokia for about 3-4 years, and so I decided to take a little bit of time break from Nokia, so I resigned from the post. I took about almost a year off, trying to work with, trying to figure out what do I want to do. Right. And there were several ideas there, and then self-driving car at that time was becoming a thing. There's a lot of people who started to work on self-driving car. So then I joined actually another company called AutoX. I was only there for a short amount of time when a friend of mine, who is my co-founder, he approached me and said, hey, I really want to do this high-resolution radar, and I need someone to work with me. So then I said, sure. Then we start brainstorming about how to make a high-definition radar on a car that no one has ever done before. We came up with an idea. Then we kind of applied to YC, and luckily YC actually somehow thought that it's a good idea. I don't know how, but they did, and that's how we started.
Right.
But just to make sure that I think when we approach YC, most other people have revenue. They might have a prototype of some sort. We didn't have anything, and in a time, I think that when we first started, there wasn't even a radar on the market that we can buy.
Oh, wow.
So we thought that we had to go make our own radar, which is now that from what I know now, that's almost impossible. And we were lucky enough that TI started selling that radar almost about just a month after we got into YC. So I think we got really lucky there.
So it seems like the Y Combinator program was quite important to your startup. Can you detail into the selection process and what it was like, applying into the program?
Right. So Y Combinator, Y Combinator, as you said, is an incubator. They accept about 200 to, back then was 100 company, but now I think they accept about 200 to 300 companies every half a year, right? And this is an incubator. What they are, so they want, so they basically accept companies at a seed stage, or a pre-seed stage, or idea stage. In our case, that's a complete just an idea, and they incubate you for 3 months. To get you to a stage where you can actually successfully raise a seed round to continue on your company. The selection process, I think that everyone just apply through a application. There's various different sample applications that you can find on YouTube that says what's an important application, but rather you just have to kind of articulate what you do, why you want to do that, why is this a good idea? Why does anyone wants this thing, and so on and so forth. And these days they interview by phone. I think you just have to upload. I mean, video. You just have to upload a 2-minute video, and I think that's all your application is.
Cool. So when applying for Y Combinator, did like the process of pitching your company and making those videos, did that help kind of refocus your the direction of where your company, where you wanted your company to head?
I think it certainly helps you articulate certain facts. In the sense that it makes your idea more clear. As I said, most of the question they surround, they focus on is, again, why, what is it, the thing that you want to build? Why does anyone need it? And why should you be the person who's building it? And why isn't there already anyone who's building it? So thinking of that through kind of allow you to kind of position yourself to, to the market, to basically allow you to have a very good focus to, what is the things that you need to build and why, right? And I think even now, I think as I was talking earlier, we are in the middle of trying to raise another round of funding, and I think these are the same set of questions that come up. So,
right. Cool. So a little bit more about the company and the technology you guys are working on. What do you think is the potential of the technology you're developing? Right, how will Zendar change the landscape of autonomous driving or even the entire transport industry?
Sure. So what we are making is a radar, automotive radar, right? And what we are focusing on is one key aspect of the radar, which is the resolution of the radar, right? And current resolution of the radar roughly is about 3 to 5 degrees. That is so that is at 30 meters. I mean, at 100 meters, anything that is less than 30 centimeters might not be able to tell apart. Right? So. And the state of art is about 1 degree, and what we are shooting for is a spec that's about 10 times better than even some of the next generation radar that's not in the market today. So we're aiming for a resolution that's about 0.1 degree. And the reason that we want to use radar is that radar is one of the only sensors. I mean, is the only sensor for automotive that allow you to see very long range and in bad weather. And we believe that all autonomy need to able to see in bad weather and basically to see in all conditions. And that's why we are working on this product. And obviously radar also have some other nice kind of properties, like it's easy to manufacture, it's cheap, it's robust, it can be mounted under the bumper, it doesn't need to be, it can be painted over and so on and so forth. So what we are focusing on is having a high resolution radar that can allow you to perform high, autonomy or safety features that ultimately will make the car more smarter and also safer.
That's all very that's very all right. That's all very interesting stuff. So
thank you.
From my understanding, there are a lot of firms that are trying to develop vision technology for autonomous driving, namely firms like Mobileye. What sets your company apart from them?
Right. So I can give you the longer version of the story. I guess the shorter version is Mobileye surely have been focusing mostly on camera vision. I think they're trying to do some integration with existing radar sensors. And what we're developing is basically a new radar kind of system that something like the Mobileye can actually leverage their that can build something like the Mobileye can actually leverage our radar to build a better kind of detection pipeline for better kind of output and more robust output.
Yeah, and so another question I have is, are the other firms that are working on developing vision technology, do you see them as competitors? Or do you see that I've read before that you guys are working on very specific different parts of this industry?
Yeah, we don't actually see any of them as competitors. I mean, even we're talking about radar sensing itself, right? I think if you look at all the companies who are doing radar sensing, everyone has a slightly different angle. We might actually be improving 2 different parts of the same product, right? So, for example, some radar company are making better, better chips. They're making better chipsets. They're making, some companies are making better antenna structures. Some companies are making better modulation schemes. And we are basically a system. We are basically coming at a system level, radar system level design to basically get higher resolution out of that. So I think we all can play together in the market to get the best out of a radar system.
So what do you think is your ultimate vision for the company? Are you guys looking to be ultimately acquired by a larger firm, or do you guys want to stay independent in the long run?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, the first part will be a little bit hard to like shoot for. I mean, it's almost very hard to kind of aim that you need to be buy out by someone else, in the sense that it will probably shoehorn into some very kind of narrow focus. So we're always aiming to kind of trying to bring the product into the market, right? And what happens along the road, that's based on what the market needs to decide. But our goal is to basically bring this market all the way into production, that goes into a car.
Right, that sounds like amazing work. So you've obviously had quite an amazing career so far. I'd like to know how you progressed through that career. So did you have any mentors while progressing through your career?
Yeah, I would say the CEO for EarthMine, his name is John Ristevsky. So he has helped me a lot, well, in the earlier part of my actual career. I mean, obviously that before that, I think my advisor, PhD advisor Bruno Oshausen, who also helped me a lot. He definitely taught me a lot of things that otherwise I wouldn't know today. But in my professional career, John actually guided me through a lot. He was the CEO for EarthMine, and he was my boss in Nokia. So I kind of got a lot of help from him to kind of progress through my ladder.
So you can attribute like a lot of your success through like the help of your mentor, right? And so what is one of the most valuable lessons and experiences that you learned through your mentors?
Yeah, so I think that's two parts of it. Yeah, so let me talk about maybe my PhD advisor for a little bit. I think I really owe him quite a lot in terms of teaching me a lot of things that in the area of signal processing, in the area of image processing, and also in the area of neuroscience. I distinctly remember when I first came to Berkeley. He was also a fresh. He was actually moving from UC Davis, and he came in to Berkeley back in 2005, and I was his only student back then, as a rotation student. I think maybe me and another person. And he didn't have an office at that time, so he was just sitting right next to me. And every day he would just keep teaching me some random stuff, like new stuff, like say, hey, this signal processing thing goes like that. And I will be reading some papers. I will obviously will have no idea what's going on. And he he would spend almost like a half a day just explaining to me what are these things. And every month I was asked to present something. Obviously I would present some complete garbage. And he would actually sit down, listen to this thing, and back, and knowing that this thing actually completely didn't make sense, right? But he's the kind of person who will turn this thing into something that's useful. And he will be like, he wouldn't tell you that this is complete garbage. You kind of knew that. But he will be like, yeah, this thing, that thing doesn't kind of work very well, but maybe you can think of this another way, or maybe, and this will actually be a thing. So, I think he spent a lot of time teaching basically every single student of his. And I'm very grateful for that.
Wow, it seems like you guys had a really good relationship and that was very helpful to you. And so now it seems like you're in a position where you could give advice from the position of a mentor. And so my question is, when you're looking to hire engineers for your team or just people to join your team, what do you look for in a candidate?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're looking for is the ability to independently think about the problem, able to kind of reason about the problem, able to actually come up with what is the actual problem you're trying to solve. That's the first step. And second is to able to devise some method to solve it. I think the first part is actually way more important than the second, and so that's usually what we are trying to look for.
So if you could travel back in time, right, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self, and would you do anything differently throughout your career?
That's a good question. I would actually, I would have to actually fairly, obviously there is something, what I don't know is what I don't know, but I actually don't think that I have that many regrets in my career. And I would actually have to say that I'm fairly lucky, and all the big steps all the big turning point all turned out well for me. So yeah, I don't think that I'm actually going to say anything, make any different choices. I actually think that I was pretty lucky that all the stars kind of align in that direction.
That's great. So in 2020, like a lot of students are graduating, they're stressing over finding jobs. Do you have any tips of finding a job in your industry for graduates in 2020?
Yeah, I would think, I think I would say, I would definitely say apply to as many jobs as you can. Be prepared for every interview. Every interview is different. Whether you apply for a big company or a small company, they all have different procedures. So make sure that you actually know what is the procedure, what is being expected from you. I would say just go through every interview, and hopefully you will find something. I think there are a lot of companies still hiring, so I think that it's hopeful that some people can eventually get a job.
Thank you so much. That's really great advice. So here ends our discussion today with Jimmy. If you would like to keep up to date with his startup Zendar, you can follow his details in the description below. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for your time today. It was great to gain insight into the industry and just learn about your career progression. For those of you that have not joined our Facebook group, please find the link in the description. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you again.
All right, thank you so much.